So our next session is a really brilliant one from Sara Antonelli from Snap, from installs to impact, driving sustainable app growth on Snapchat. And this is really a fabulous presentation. I'm very excited to hear from you, Sara. Please welcome Sara.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for having me. The idea of today's presentation is that you leave with some takeaways and maybe a little bit of inspiration to help you power your next avenue for your mobile gaming growth. So without further ado, I'm going to dive straight into it. Every time that I actually jump on a meeting or a call with some of our partners, industry leaders, the one thing that I often hear is actually there's a huge need for diversification. And in a very competitive landscape as today is, this is becoming increasingly challenging. So today I wanted to discuss with you 4 pillars or 4 different ways that we ourselves as a Snapchat started to think about ways of supporting our closest partners in order to be able to be that strong channel to drive growth. So there's nothing to say that we can drive growth without thinking about a core audience or an audience that is able to support scale. The second part, obviously, audience is nothing if you cannot drive performance and focus on performance-driven solutions. Finally, obviously, in between an easy onboarding process, but also the challenges the ecosystem brings, especially from a very challenging iOS ecosystem, we have to think about very private-centric solutions and solutions that are able to suit every sort of measurement style. So before I actually dive into the most in-depth and technical part of the presentation, obviously I wanted to demystify a little bit about the conception of why Snapchat, and perhaps a little bit about our audience as well. Obviously, I wanted to bring to light a little bit of switch in the aspects, and so you can understand a little bit why we focus so much, obviously, also on the app ecosystem. But we have been through a journey in the past year, and that journey started in the way that we ourselves, as an app, started to develop different ways of monetization. As you obviously know, we are a social media network, and with that, we generate most of our income via ads or ad solutions. But in the last year or so, we also looking into the way that our users behaved and the way that they actually appreciated the app, we focus on building a different way of generating direct revenue. And that was actually incredibly successful when we launched Snapchat Plus, and actually one of first in its kinds, and you can see all the social medias out there now trying to develop the same thing. This was as successful because we actually understood our core user audience very, very well. And we not only were able to drive 15 million plus Snapchat subscriptions, but in less than a year, we were able to generate 700 million in ARR from this particular direct revenue solution. So essentially, we use those learnings and how we were able to scale and grow our own app and our own way of monetization to actually power the solution that was about to come a little bit later, called our App Power Pack. We understood that even within our LTV ecosystem and how we were able to retain our users, we were also able to then develop user growth solutions for mobile gaming and all the leaders in the app ecosystem in order for them to also benefit from the solution and the ecosystem that we're building internally based on the users that we focused on so much. And that obviously is a brand new thing to the market, but we're already able to show uplifts such as 25% lift in app installs, if you're thinking about kind of mid-funnel play, but also if you're thinking about lower funnel play, on user acquisition alone, you can see an uplift of 18%. But obviously, switching gears a little bit, as you're interested mostly on the gaming aspect of the audience, it's very important to know that we have audience at scale. Maybe you're not super aware of these numbers just yet, but we have 932 million MAUs today and on track to actually hit the 1 billion mark by next year. And that's also translated into 469 million DAU across the globe. And you might think, well, maybe I'm not too sure if my audience is in fact a Snap. But I'm happy to tell you that actually 78% of our users at Snapchat actually use gaming apps on a daily basis. And that's quite a big number if you think about the scale that we currently have. And not only that, but 59% of Snapchat use gaming apps on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And not only that, but also if you're thinking about powering growth from a user acquisition perspective, Snapchatters are actually looking for not only play their games on a daily basis, but also they're interested in actually new games as well. And not only that, obviously, you're not there to drive an install only, but we actually see that 50% of Snapchatters made an in-app conversion within the app in itself, which is more than double if they were actually to acquire a product or a physical product in itself. And also, well, you might think that, you know, I have already my marketing suite across all the social medias, but the reality is that our audience is quite unique, and you're probably not going to find a lot of your users within all the other channels, such as Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, as well as Instagram. And you might think, well, but I also have like a quite good strategy at TikTok, and I think maybe there's synergism between the audiences. And you might think we're very focused on Jay-Z, which in fact we do have 75% coverage of 13 to 34 years old, but more than 25% of all Snapchatters average 35 plus. I myself am nearly 35. I downloaded the app when I was back at uni. I still have the same app, so the actual user base grew up with the app. And markets such as France, even here in the Nordics, the average of the population is actually 35 plus. So you might say, well, my casual gaming user base is 35 plus female. You might just have found like another way to drive growth. Now talking to what matters the most, obviously performance. A user base is nothing if you actually can't drive performance and sustain the performance. So I'm really happy to share with you guys that today we have a solution called App Power Pack that was generated already incredible results, and it might seem out of the ordinary, but we have seen 70% increase in app-based purchase optimizations just with the solution. And actually, we did came a long way, because it has been a year of revamping our infrastructure solutions. And obviously, there was a lot of talk about AI and how we can also power those solutions to build AM and solutions that work. So we have been through this journey, and we really focused on 4 key things to be able to really cater for our advertisers' needs and our closest partners' expectations of how they can actually use a new channel to drive the growth. The first one was, in fact, rebuilding our ecosystem, rebuilding our infrastructure to really drive the performance at scale. The second is obviously power everything through a strong and resilient app signal solution. The third, obviously the most impactful one, is measurement solutions that really work. And then finally, some innovation through new ad formats. So the first thing we've done whenever it comes to ad solutions, and if you haven't heard of this particular product as Snap just yet, you're probably going to hear about it really soon. It has been the top performance solution for all gaming advertisers, and is pretty much just essentially driving the right user to the right ad so they can actually make the conversion that's expected into a very cost-effective way. And for example, cases such as rewarded play advertisers such as Yotta have seen an incredible performance, 35 times more iOS installs at 80% lower cost per installs, 60 times more purchases and 90% lower cost per purchases. And also in their case, they were driving new user acquisition efforts for the first time purchase or first-time depositor, and in that sense, they saw 13% lower costs when optimizing towards that. On top of that, we've done a lot of back-end targeting and delivery improvements in order for advertisers to reach the right audience and do that at scale, combined with precise delivery, such as like an auto-exclusion logic, all in order for them to be able to achieve their KPIs. So take this case study, for example, from Nexus, that by leveraging the 7-0 deliver optimization, they were able to drive 18% lower CPIs and targeted users that are more likely to convert on a last click optimization. And then finally, value optimization, which is one other performance-driven pillar that we were able to develop. And also, hot off the press, we're evolving this solution to a T-ROAS solution by the end of the year as well, also to be able to drive performance at scale, but also to really drive LTV as an area of focus and really trying to find the valuable users that are going to be able to also drive a stronger performance overall to maximize ROAS. Then jumping into app signals, obviously a little while back when a lot of us focused on launching new solutions that were powered by signals, we understood that was quite important and pivotal for us as Snap to also build a robust solution that would encompass all measurement styles. So that being from if you were a classic MMP attribution or leveraging log level data, for example, to also SSOT by leveraging also scan postbacks, and then powered by maybe a CAP integration whenever you were able to enforce or understand the need for PIIs. And the most interesting aspect of launching a solution that's signal resilient is obviously the connection that we build with all the MMPs in the ecosystem by launching our advanced SIN solutions, which was in fact a game changer because we're not only able to now start to report on opt-out users, but we're also able to use a much more robust ecosystem when it comes to signal, leveraging secondary pings from MMP to really power our ML ecosystem and really understand how to enhance the performance even when there's not a lot of signal information coming from the user side of the house. So on top of that, by leveraging advanced SIN, we were able to power our own solution called Advanced Conversions. That was a private-centric solution then that was able to power advertisers to move or shift from like a scan-only type of measurement ecosystem to a non-scan ecosystem. And that just drove a lot more granularity of data, and they were able to actually make strong decisions, even all the way from a country perspective breakdown to an ad perspective breakdown, and really understand how to power the solutions in order to make informative decisions. And finally, even on the scan solutions, we have been enhancing the solution quite frequently as well. And today, also, even with as little as 15 stores a day, we're able to achieve thresholds of withholds as low as 2 or 3%, making sure that you're not leaving any conversion behind. And then when it comes to, obviously, our new measurement solutions, this is freshly out of the oven, something that we have been developing in the past year, and really a huge part of our App Power Pack. This was basically to bring parity to the ecosystem. So if you leverage solutions at Meta and TikTok, for example, ADC and AEM or AMM, this solution just brings parity, so you're able to actually optimize towards non-scan outcomes. And even if you use a measurement ecosystem that might cater for different types of measurements, so you have like the MMP combined with a scan, or if you have even like leverage SSOT, on AppsFlyer side as your MMP, this solution is quite convenient, so you're able to actually really optimize towards a more resilient approach. There's a non-scan approach, but also reporting on non-scan. Finally, we were also able to get a lot closer to what advertisers' main source of truth is, and we launched a new solution called App Acquisition Metrics, which essentially brings down all the discrepancy concerns that sometimes you might have with the solutions that you use for your user acquisition channels, because essentially it just leverages all the signals from the MMP, and from that brings parity to attributing a conversion to a particular install, and from that obviously leveraging your attribution window with the MMP, but the look-back window of the conversion window. Therefore bringing parity and no longer actually only defining conversions based on the touch points, but now being aligned with the MMP outcomes and third-party data. And finally, this is actually one of the most exciting ones, one that I have been working quite closely with the product team. And right now is an alpha, so if you guys want to know more about the solution, you can also pop into our booth just outside of the track room to your left to ask our team about it. But essentially, I do think this is cutting-edge technology, because even some of our main competitors still don't have a solution that is as relevant as this. So today we're able to launch a solution that no longer optimizes just towards our own ecosystem, but actually we started to optimize to the third-party ecosystem. So in this way, we actually automate all the process and make the ease of onboarding and the seamless onboarding come to fruition and reality, because this becomes essentially a plug-and-play product for you to be able to leverage a Snap as a growth lever. And this essentially just brings everything that you care about on your source of truth, meaning your attribution window, your unique identifiers, your a granular cohorted level of users, and via the secondary pings we're able to optimize towards those. So no longer optimizing towards a first part solution, but actually optimizing towards the third part solution, getting closer and closer to your actual source of truth. And then to just finish us off with a little bit of innovation, I would like to cover what we have developed when it comes to our formats and solutions. You might be familiar with our full stack, but if you're not, we are a social media network that opens to the camera, and we are very native to gaming advertisers, just because our users themselves are very used to play games, and even with gamified lenses, for example, that is inherent for them. But in the way that we're able to actually drive more incremental inventory, as well as launch something that's native to our platform, we launched a very engaging format within Sponsor Snaps. If you can think about Sponsor Snaps, obviously that is a format that is served within the chat box, and Snapchat has actually opened the chat box 40 times a day. So think that comparison to a WhatsApp to these days, instead of just an in-feed. So that becomes like a very obviously brand heavy, because if you're top of mind for users seeing the chat 40 times a day, that also can drive a scalable, incremental user level engagement. And in that sense, the numbers that we have been seeing is 18% increase in the growth of unique numbers of Snapchatters who actually install and purchase the ad. Then another solution that we have launched is quite interesting one. Actually, Append Cards grabs 2 images from the App Store and brings the reviews of your app into the ecosystem itself, and that was also able to drive 90% increase in installs. And finally, maybe you have playable ads available to all your DSPs and networks today, but that has been a very interesting format that we launched recently as well. And this thus came as like a second nature to our advertisers and to our users themselves, because they very well engage with playables, given them that actually have the gamified lenses and so on and so forth. And this has been proven to be quite interesting when it comes to the results that they're actually also able to drive as Snapchat. We might have like 1 minute for questions. Otherwise, we're happy to also take all the other questions that you might have in the booth.